We stand united in this victory. Let this trophy inspire us to push harder. Together we'll reach new heights.
It was a packed arena, the kind of crowd buzzing with anticipation that could almost be felt in the air. The undefeated champion of the time, known for his speed, strength, and ruthless technique, stood confidently in the center of the ring, radiating the aura of someone who had never been bested. Fans cheered, cameras flashed, and the energy was electric, a perfect storm for a historic fight, or so everyone thought. But what no one knew, not even the champion himself, was that a legendary martial artist, a man whose name would become synonymous with skill, speed, and innovation, was sitting quietly in the audience, watching every movement, every feint, every calculated strike with an intensity that could slice through steel. That man was Bruce Lee. What happened next would shock the crowd, redefine expectations, and leave an unforgettable mark on martial arts history. The story begins with a champion at the height of his career, someone who had faced countless opponents and walked away victorious every single time. He had been trained extensively, his reflexes honed through years of rigorous practice, and his mind sharpened to anticipate any move an opponent could make. Confidence naturally radiated from him. The crowd could sense it, feeding off it, as they cheered his name and anticipated another flawless performance. Yet, amidst this controlled chaos, there was no awareness that destiny had something entirely different in store for him that day. Bruce Lee, though physically present only as a seemingly ordinary spectator, had spent his life mastering not only the mechanics of combat, but also the art of reading and exploiting every opening, every weakness in his opponent's strategy. Sitting in the audience, Lee observed the champion's movements with the critical eye of a master. Every step, every stance, every subtle twitch of the muscles was being analyzed with precision, as if Lee's mind was rehearsing 1,000 scenarios, at once calculating possibilities that no ordinary fighter could perceive. In that moment, Bruce Lee was invisible, underestimated, and yet the invisible force that would soon challenge the invincible. The champion, unaware of the presence of one of the greatest martial artists the world had ever known, did what champions do instinctively. He looked for someone who seemed willing to step into the ring. The call went out, and the challenge was accepted, an act that, on the surface, seemed routine. But this time, the person who had accepted was not random in the ordinary sense. It was someone whose understanding of combat transcended traditional boundaries. Bruce Lee had been in the audience, a spectator in a world that had no idea he could change it in an instant. What followed was a demonstration of martial skill, awareness, and ingenuity that would leave even the most seasoned observers speechless. The champion, used to opponents reacting to him, was about to face someone who would dictate the terms of engagement with a combination of speed, timing, and unpredictable creativity that defied conventional logic. In the first few moments, there was a dance of observation, Lee testing, gauging, feeling out the rhythm and limits of his opponent. The champion, still unaware, assumed this was just the usual pre-fight assessment, the usual hesitation that preceded a display of raw power. Yet, every motion Bruce Lee made was a carefully calculated move, each step and feint designed not only to protect himself but to expose the weaknesses that only a master could exploit. The crowd could sense something different in the air, a tension that was unfamiliar. Spectators who had come expecting a routine show of dominance suddenly felt the presence of an unpredictable force. Bruce Lee's movements were fluid, almost too fast to track, his strategy simultaneously defensive and offensive, as if he could see into the champion's intentions before they even fully formed. The champion attempted the usual attacks, combinations. He had used countless times before, expecting them to yield the same results as always. Yet, with each strike, there was a subtle disruption, a deft redirection, an almost imperceptible evasion that left the champion slightly off balance, questioning the reliability of his instincts. For those watching, it became clear that something extraordinary was unfolding. A silent revelation that the fight was no longer just a test of strength but of perception, adaptability, and skill. Bruce Lee's approach was not merely physical, it was intellectual, psychological, and intensely adaptive. He transformed the arena into a laboratory, where every reaction of his opponent was data to be analyzed, every gesture a clue to be exploited. The champion, who had once dominated everyone he faced, was confronted with an opponent whose style was not only unorthodox but constantly evolving. No standard approach could predict Bruce Lee's movements. No practiced technique could guarantee success. The fight became a study in contrast, one man relying on experience, routine, and power, the other relying on innovation, speed, and the mastery of both body and mind. With every exchange, the champion was forced to adjust, reconsider, and ultimately realize that he was encountering a level of mastery he had never faced before. The audience, initially unaware of the significance of the moment, began to recognize the subtle cues, the impossibly fast reactions, the precision of timing, the clarity of intent behind each motion. It was becoming apparent that the person they had assumed to be just another challenger was in fact a phenomenon, someone whose abilities transcended the conventional understanding of combat. Bruce Lee's presence, though quietly seated moments before, had transformed the encounter into an extraordinary spectacle, illustrating not just the clash of skill but the collision of perception, preparation, and innovation. Every movement was a lesson, every maneuver a demonstration of what true mastery looked like, as the champion came face to face with an unparalleled force. The audience witnessed history in motion, seeing firsthand the difference between predictable technique and adaptive genius. As the challenge unfolded, it became evident that this was more than just a fight. It was a demonstration of what happens when preparation, insight, and creativity meet unchallenged confidence, and the results would ripple through martial arts circles for years to come. Once Bruce Lee stepped into the makeshift arena, the energy shifted in a way that words can barely capture. The champion, seasoned and confident, had anticipated a fight that would follow predictable rhythms, a testing of strength, endurance, and traditional skill. What he did not anticipate, not for a single second, was the sheer unpredictability, the fluid intelligence that Bruce Lee brought to every movement. Lee's speed was not just in the swing of a punch or the kick of a leg. It was in his mind, in the rapid calculation of angles, timing, and leverage. He was a storm in motion, but unlike any storm the champion had encountered, it was precise, controlled, and terrifyingly deliberate. The first moment of engagement demonstrated the subtlety of Lee's genius. Where the champion might have relied on brute force to overwhelm, Lee introduced techniques that exploited minimal openings. His strikes were lightning quick, often leaving only a blur in the corner of one's vision. But speed alone did not define his effectiveness. It was the combination of speed with unanticipated movement, rhythm changes, and deceptive feints. Every attack, every parry, and every shift in stance had a purpose. Bruce Lee's tactics were a combination of offensive innovation and defensive mastery. He would draw the champion forward with a feigned vulnerability, only to pivot, redirect, and strike in a way that the champion's trained instincts had not accounted for. The unpredictability of Lee's movements made the champion hesitant, breaking the rhythm of a man who had previously relied on timing and repetition to dominate opponents. At this moment, the audience could sense that this was no ordinary exhibition. It was a masterclass in adaptive combat. Lee would flow seamlessly between attack and defense, combining strikes with sweeps and redirects that were almost impossible to follow. Each motion flowed naturally into the next, yet it was meticulously calculated to maximize efficiency and minimize risk. To the untrained eye, it looked like dancing, a fluid motion that masked the lethal precision behind every movement. The champion tried to anticipate Lee's attacks, but Lee's speed and strategy were unlike anything he had faced. Each strike, while fast and devastating, was delivered with intention, probing for weaknesses, testing reflexes, and calculating the optimal approach for the next moment. What appeared to be simple movement was, in fact, an intricate sequence of tactical decisions executed in fractions of a second. Lee's mind was working faster than the eye could follow. For the audience, the spectacle was mesmerizing. They could see the champion, usually unshakable and self-assured, now forced to react, adjust, and question his own reflexes. It became evident that Lee's technique was not just physical, it was psychological. He controlled not only the tempo of the fight, but the perceptions of his opponent. The champion, accustomed to setting the pace, was now being guided, manipulated, and ultimately challenged on every level. Bruce Lee's footwork was another element that distinguished him. Unlike traditional fighters who maintained rigid stances, Lee was constantly in motion, shifting angles, creating new attack vectors, and keeping the champion off balance. His movement was a combination of agility, strategy, and fluidity that transformed the space around them into an unpredictable battlefield. Every step, pivot, and sidestep served both to evade and to create openings, a dynamic interplay that forced the champion to overextend, misjudge distance, or hesitate at critical moments. The speed at which Lee operated was nearly impossible for the audience to fully comprehend. His strikes, whether punches or kicks, were executed with such velocity that they were barely perceptible until impact. Yet, even in the midst of this apparent chaos, there was a visible pattern to his method, an order that only someone with exceptional mastery could produce. Lee's unpredictability extended beyond attacks into his defensive maneuvers. He would anticipate strikes not by reading muscle movements alone, but by understanding intention, timing, and the flow of energy. This allowed him to deflect, evade, or redirect attacks in a way that seemed almost prescient. The champion, facing a barrage of rapid, adaptive, and deceptive tactics, found that his own strengths became liabilities, his experience now countered by a higher level of mastery. To the crowd, it was nothing short of awe-inspiring. Spectators could see the difference between standard fighting skill and the art of combat elevated to genius. Lee's speed and tactics were not just tools, they were an extension of his mind, a physical manifestation of his intellect and intuition combined. By the end of this encounter, it became clear that Bruce Lee's presence had redefined the rules of engagement. The fight was no longer a mere challenge, it was a revelation, a demonstration of what happens when instinct, intellect, and skill converge at a level most have never imagined. Each movement told a story, each strike carried a lesson, and the champion, though formidable, was being shown a new paradigm, one that would influence martial arts thinking for decades to come. Lee's unmatched combination of speed, strategy, and adaptability ensured that the fight was unforgettable, both for the participants and for those lucky enough to witness it firsthand. The reverberations of this encounter extended far beyond the arena walls. For the audience, witnessing Bruce Lee confront the champion with such speed, precision, and strategic brilliance was a transformative experience. Spectators had entered the venue expecting to see a conventional display of strength and skill, perhaps even a demonstration of dominance by the undefeated champion. What they received, however, was a live, visceral lesson in martial arts mastery that challenged conventional thinking. The energy in the arena shifted from anticipation to disbelief, then to awe, as it became evident that this was not merely a fight but a historic encounter. Conversations after the event would revolve around the sheer brilliance of Bruce Lee's approach. Martial artists, athletes, and even casual observers began dissecting every movement, analyzing each strike, and discussing the innovative techniques that Lee had employed. His mastery of both offense and defense, combined with his fluid adaptability, set a new standard for what combat could achieve when combined with intellect and psychological awareness. The champion, for his part, walked away with a profound lesson about humility, preparation, and the limitations of traditional training when faced with innovation and genius. Though formidable and undefeated until that point, he now carried firsthand experience of the unpredictable brilliance of an unparalleled martial artist. Lee's approach demonstrated that combat was not simply a contest of strength or endurance, but of perception, timing, and adaptation. For practitioners worldwide, this encounter became a benchmark, inspiring a generation to rethink how they trained, moved, and approached martial arts. The fight illustrated the importance of flexibility, both mental and physical, and the need to constantly innovate rather than rely solely on conventional techniques. Beyond the martial arts community, the audience was profoundly affected on a human level. Watching Bruce Lee, a man who seemed ordinary moments before, effortlessly command the rhythm of the fight and dominate the champion, left spectators with a sense of possibility and inspiration. It was a demonstration of what can be achieved when talent, discipline, creativity, and preparation converge. This encounter also contributed to the legend of Bruce Lee himself, Stories of the event spread, retold with reverence and awe, cementing his reputation as not just a fighter, but a revolutionary figure in the world of martial arts. For many, the lesson went beyond physical combat. It became about mastery of oneself, the ability to adapt under pressure, and the courage to step forward even when underestimated or unseen. Bruce Lee's presence in the audience, initially unrecognized, turned a routine challenge into a historic moment. It highlighted the power of observation, preparation, and the element of surprise, demonstrating that true mastery often lies not just in action, but in perception, timing, and understanding the nature of your opponent. The ripple effects of that day influenced not only martial artists, but filmmakers, choreographers, and cultural enthusiasts worldwide. It inspired movies, training methods, and philosophies that emphasized adaptability, innovation, and the fusion of mind and body in combat. The encounter also underscored the unpredictability of life itself. What seemed like an ordinary day with a predictable event unfolding in front of a live audience transformed into a defining moment because of presence, skill, and timing. The narrative reinforced that greatness often appears unexpectedly, hidden among the ordinary, and that true mastery can reshape expectations, challenge assumptions, and leave an indelible mark on history. The audience would never forget the electrifying combination of speed, precision, and intelligence that Bruce Lee brought into that arena. The lessons learned, both by the champion and the spectators, transcended martial arts, offering insight into excellence, innovation, and the profound impact of stepping boldly into a moment others underestimate. For decades, martial artists would recount this event as a turning point, not just in technique, but in the philosophy of combat. It demonstrated the limitless possibilities when intellect, preparation, and adaptability intersect with raw skill, and solidified Bruce Lee's enduring legacy as a pioneer whose influence would shape generations to come. The encounter was not just a fight. It was a revelation that changed the way people viewed martial arts, challenged assumptions about power and dominance, and left the audience in awe of what true mastery could achieve. Every eye in that arena bore witness to the difference between a conventional champion and someone who transcended convention, someone whose presence alone could rewrite the rules of engagement and inspire everyone who saw it. From the very first moments of the fight, the crowd's energy was electric, but it was unlike anything anyone had ever experienced. Spectators had come expecting to witness a champion, undefeated and revered, demonstrate his skills in the ring, perhaps taking down a challenger in a predictable display of strength and technique. Instead, they were thrust into a spectacle that defied expectation, a moment where mastery, speed, and ingenuity collided to create something unforgettable. As Bruce Lee moved with a speed and precision that seemed almost supernatural, whispers ran through the audience. Who is this man? How can he move like that? Is the champion even touching him? The murmurs quickly escalated to stunned exclamations as Lee's strikes landed with accuracy, timing, and fluidity that stunned everyone. Even the champion, the seemingly invincible fighter, was forced into reactive motions, hesitant and uncertain, his prior confidence challenged at every turn. The crowd, initially on the side of the champion, found themselves captivated by the unexpected prowess of this unknown challenger. Bruce Lee's entrance into the fight was silent and unassuming. No grand introduction, no fanfare, no announcements. He had been seated among the audience, seemingly invisible, and suddenly became the center of attention. This transformation, from invisible spectator to dominating presence, was nothing short of mesmerizing. People in the stands began to realize that they were witnessing history in the making. Each movement, each strike, each evasive maneuver from Bruce Lee elicited audible gasps, cheers, and even moments of silence as they collectively processed what was happening before their eyes. Social dynamics in the crowd shifted instantly. Fans who had come to cheer for the champion now found themselves in awe of the man who had stepped forward from the audience to challenge the undefeated fighter. Cameras and recording devices, though primitive compared to today's technology, captured the energy, the reactions, and the tension that filled the arena. For many, it was a revelation, a reminder that mastery can appear in the most unexpected places and that one should never underestimate someone who seems ordinary at first glance. As the fight progressed, the crowd's reaction became a powerful force in itself. Every deft movement from Lee seemed to amplify the atmosphere, as though the energy of the spectators fed his precision and speed. Cheers became louder, anticipation heightened, and a sense of collective witnessing formed. A rare experience where the audience recognized they were seeing something far beyond a standard display of combat. This reaction extended beyond mere entertainment. It became a shared, cultural moment. People who had attended the event carried the memory with them for years, recounting the spectacle as a defining experience. Those who had not witnessed it firsthand learned about it through retellings that emphasized the unbelievable nature of Bruce Lee's abilities. Stories circulated not only about his technical brilliance, but about the emotional impact on the audience, the awe, the disbelief, and the reverence that his presence commanded. This encounter became a viral legend long before the term viral existed. Word spread through newspapers, word of mouth, and martial arts circles, painting Bruce Lee as a figure whose skill and presence transcended ordinary expectations. People marveled not only at his mastery of combat, but at the narrative of an unseen figure rising from the crowd to redefine a moment that everyone thought they understood. The psychological impact on the audience was profound. Witnessing a person take control of a situation in such a way, where skill, intelligence, and precision converged to create an unforgettable display, left a lasting impression on all who were present. It was a lesson in unpredictability, in the extraordinary potential hidden within the ordinary, and in the idea that legends can appear where least expected. The encounter became more than a fight. It became a story that would be told and retold for decades, inspiring countless individuals to pursue mastery in martial arts, challenge assumptions, and remain vigilant for the extraordinary in everyday life. Bruce Lee's performance that day illustrated the power of presence, skill, and strategy, showing that mastery can command attention even before words are spoken, before names are known, and before reputations are established. The crowd's reaction, a mixture of amazement, respect, and sheer excitement, was a testament to the transformative power of witnessing genius in action. It reinforced the idea that true mastery is universally recognized, that excellence transcends personal allegiances, and that the unexpected can change the course of history in an instant. By the time the fight concluded, the audience had been transformed. What started as a routine demonstration became a legendary experience, a tale of skill, timing, and unpredictability that would echo far beyond the arena. People left with stories, with awe in their hearts, and with the knowledge that they had seen a master redefine the meaning of combat. The reaction of the crowd became part of the legend itself, inseparable from Bruce Lee's actions and the memory of the event. It served as a reminder that moments of greatness are amplified when witnessed collectively, and that history is often shaped not only by action, but by the perception and reaction of those who observe it. The fight, the crowd, and the legend together created an enduring narrative, one where Bruce Lee's presence, though initially hidden, became the defining factor in an event that would be remembered for generations, inspiring countless martial artists, fans, and observers to this very day. The fight that unfolded that day was not just a singular moment of mastery. It became a cornerstone in the story of martial arts evolution. Bruce Lee's presence, skill, and innovation did more than shock an audience, or humble an undefeated champion. It set a new paradigm for how martial arts could be understood, practiced, and appreciated worldwide. Prior to Lee's demonstration, many martial artists adhered strictly to traditional forms, techniques, and methods passed down through generations. These systems, while deeply rooted in culture and discipline, often emphasized ritualized sequences and set patterns that limited adaptability in unpredictable combat situations. Lee's encounter with a champion challenged these conventions. He revealed that true mastery extends beyond memorized movements, that the essence of martial arts lies in understanding the principles behind each action, the dynamics of energy, timing, distance, and the psychological interplay between fighters. Observers, both casual and professional, were confronted with the idea that technique alone was insufficient. Adaptability, creativity, and intelligence were equally, if not more, important. Bruce Lee's approach demonstrated that mastery is as much a mental and philosophical pursuit as it is physical. His philosophy, later formalized as Jeet Kune Do, emphasized simplicity, directness, and freedom from rigid patterns. Each movement, each reaction, is dictated not by tradition alone but by the demands of the moment, by what is effective, efficient, and true to the fighter's abilities. The encounter in the arena was an early visceral illustration of this. Philosophy in action. It became a reference point for martial artists worldwide, a practical demonstration of theory realized in real-time combat. Those who witnessed it or heard the stories afterward began to rethink how they trained, how they approached opponents, and how they conceptualized the art of fighting itself. Lee's influence extended beyond mere technical instruction. He inspired a mindset of self-expression through combat, encouraging martial artists to integrate techniques from various disciplines while discarding methods that were ineffective or overly restrictive. This approach was revolutionary, breaking down barriers between different styles and fostering a more holistic understanding of martial arts as a living, evolving discipline rather than a fixed, rigid system. The impact was immediate and profound. Students of martial arts began to experiment more, combining elements from kung fu, boxing, fencing, and other disciplines. They focused not only on physical conditioning but also on strategy, awareness, and adaptability, principles that Lee had exemplified in the fight against the champion. Over time, Bruce Lee's influence transcended the confines of dojos and gyms. His philosophy spread globally through films, interviews, and teachings, inspiring generations of martial artists, athletes, and enthusiasts to pursue excellence, innovation, and mastery in their own practice. The narrative of the fight, the champion unknowingly facing Bruce Lee, became emblematic of this broader legacy. It was cited repeatedly as evidence of Lee's unparalleled understanding of combat, his ability to adapt instantaneously, and his courage to challenge assumptions, all of which reinforced the philosophical tenets he championed. Beyond the martial arts community, Lee's legacy impacted popular culture, athletic training, and even personal development philosophies. His emphasis on adaptability, self-expression, and efficiency influenced not only how people trained physically, but also how they approached problem-solving, creativity, and personal growth. The story of the audience witnessing Bruce Lee in action contributed to his mythos, solidifying his status as a global icon whose lessons extended far beyond fighting. Every retelling emphasized not only the technical brilliance but the broader implications, the importance of continuous learning, the value of perception and intuition, and the idea that mastery is achieved through understanding principles rather than blindly following tradition. The encounter inspired countless books, films, and instructional materials, with martial artists around the world citing it as a turning point in their understanding of combat and philosophy. Even decades later, the story resonates because it exemplifies timeless lessons. Preparation meets opportunity, skill meets intellect, and humility meets confidence. Bruce Lee's presence, though initially hidden among spectators, became symbolic of the unseen potential within all individuals. The idea that greatness can emerge at the right moment and that one's mastery is defined not just by physical ability but by creativity, awareness, and courage. The encounter also emphasized the global nature of martial arts evolution. Techniques and philosophies that once remained localized were now being reconsidered, adapted, and shared internationally. Lee's demonstration in the arena became a case study in innovation, a practical illustration of how traditional practices could be transformed into a more effective, dynamic, and universally applicable approach. Students and practitioners worldwide studied his methods, seeking to emulate not only his physical abilities but also his strategic thinking and philosophical approach to combat. Ultimately, the fight against the champion became a defining moment not just in Bruce Lee's career, but in martial arts history itself. It symbolized the convergence of talent, intellect, philosophy, and opportunity, demonstrating that true mastery is holistic, adaptable, and universally recognizable. The lessons learned from that encounter continue to influence martial artists, athletes, and innovators, reminding the world that skill, insight, and courage can transform ordinary moments into legendary milestones. Bruce Lee's legacy, forged in moments like these, transcends time, culture, and discipline, inspiring generations to strive for mastery in both action and thought, and leaving an indelible mark on the global history of martial arts.